Hey folks, my name is Les Fox. I'm the chair of the Boxborough Water Resources Committee, and I'm joined this evening by Matt Silverman, who is a water and sewer superintendent for Littleton Water Department, and a number of other folks that will be introduced shortly. The town of Boxborough and Littleton Water Department are jointly sponsoring this webinar to give people an update on the waterline project that you first heard about in such a seminar back in January of 2023. So we were taking this opportunity to give everyone an update on what's happened since then and to describe what we see coming ahead in the road coming ahead of us and some notion of the schedule. So before I get into that, let's remind everyone how this meeting process works. We're in a webinar. So that means that first, this is will be recorded. It's being recorded now. And the recording will be available through several sources. Later we'll see who those are, but the Town of Boxborough Water Resource Committee webpage, the Town of Boxborough homepage, and Littleton Water Department homepage will all have links to how to get access to the recording. It'll also be available on the video on demand feature on Boxborough TV, as well as Littleton Community Television. During the webinar, everyone's video and microphones will be turned off. Attendees will be able to submit questions via the chat feature, which you can get at by looking on the lower part of the bar and invoking that feature. We presume most people are fairly familiar with that. So if you have a question, just submit it to the chat Q&A line on the Zoom toolbar, and we will get to answer those questions as best we can towards the end of the webinar. There will be a moderator. Dave Ketchen will be the moderator tonight. He's the assistant GM for Littleton Water Department. This is what we did before, and it worked very well. We were able to get to most of the questions and provide real-time answers to those questions from people who are assembled here as panelists who have subject matter expertise in some of the areas that are important to this project, which involves lots of help from a lot of quarters, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So as I said, the moderator will take questions from the chat and direct them to the appropriate panelists, and those panelists will be invited to speak if they are able to. And again, a record of all the questions and answers will be provided after and on the recording. First of all, I'd like to say a big acknowledgement and thanks to a number of people who have supported this project. It's been a tremendous effort. I think when I first heard about the issues with water that needed to be addressed in a comprehensive way on the western side of Boxborough was about 8 years ago. So this project has been moving along since then and recently really entered into a very rapidly moving phase. We've had outstanding support from a number of quarters, including our legislative delegations from Littleton and Boxborough, the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, aka DEP, in particular the Bureau of Water Resources. They've been so helpful in this whole effort. And finally, a huge contribution from the Massachusetts Department of Transportation through the salt remediation program. As most people are aware, salt is present in much groundwater throughout the Commonwealth, and in our area that we're focusing on with this project, it has become quite significant. So this project is all about ameliorating some of those conditions and more than just salt. So what do we have for an agenda tonight? Matt, maybe you can put that slide up.
Yep. Can you see that now, Les?
I see it now. So let's talk about we'll talk about the panelists in a minute, and we're going to update this project since 2023. One of the key things that's underway now is the new well available to the Littleton Water Department's water service system. This was formerly known as the Taylor Street well for those who have been following this saga. But that well has been proven and will be permitted at a significant level once it's completely finished. So you'll hear more about that from Matt when he talks. We had a lot of questions about costs. Everyone's interested in costs, especially the issue of betterments. And we'll explain more about that when we get next. And finally, lead off with what's happening next on the road ahead. So the next slide. So here's the cast of characters. Me, that's the top there, Les Fox. Matt Silverman is the water and sewer superintendent from Littleton Electric, Light, and Water Department. Dave Ketchens is the assistant GM for LELWD. Mariel Stone is deputy regional director for Mass DEP, and Mariel has been very tightly following and close to this project from the very beginning. Bob Buswick is her companion in this project. He's Central Regional Drinking Water Section Chief for Mass DEP, and he and Mariel have been tremendously supportive and helpful to this whole thing. Lorraine Paulen is the salt remediation program person from MassDOT and has been able to work with Mass DOT and their sources of funds to provide funding to help support the project. Tara McManus is the vice president at Weston and Sampson, and Kevin McKinnon is vice president for Weston and Sampson. They're not just vice presidents, folks, they're real engineers, and they have been working with Littleton Water Department to engineer this entire thing. We got to put pipes in the ground, drill wells, and the whole thing. A lot of moving parts, and it's great to see it all coming together. The next thing we want to talk about is what's happened since the last time. That was the update in July 23. So I'm going to, at this point, turn things over to Matt, and we'll catch in with you all later.
All right. Thanks, Les. So I'll fill you in now on some of the key events that have happened since the last public forum in July of 2023. We've done a significant amount of work since then to get the project to its current stage. Right before the previous public forum in June of 2023, there was an intermunicipal agreement that was executed between the two towns, Boxborough and Littleton, which enabled the Littleton Water Department to serve properties in Boxborough with clean, treated drinking water. This also allowed the Littleton Board of Light and Water Commissioners to commit betterments to be collected through the Boxborough Assessor's Office, and it set the parameters of the relationship between the two towns on this matter. In August of 2024, the governor signed legislation that memorialized and made permanent the provisions of the Intermunicipal Agreement, or IMA. These two documents complement each other and maintain the relationship spelled out in the IMA. LELWD has worked with Weston Sampson and a few other consultants to secure the large number of permits that we needed to actually get this project off the ground. This included orders of condition from both Littleton and Boxborough Conservation Commissions, Interbasin Transfer Act approval by the Massachusetts Water Resources Commission, a Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act or MEPA review, Water Management Act permit, Mass DOT permit, various different easements, and I think that's not even all of them. So it was a pretty significant effort to get this project permitted, but we finally got there. We were also able to secure a 0% interest loan through the State Revolving Fund loan program, which will save all Littleton and Boxborough water customers a significant amount of money towards paying project-related costs over the life of the loan. Mass DOT contributed $6.5 million towards the project, and additional funding options are currently being explored to help reduce these overall project costs that need to be paid by ratepayers. Individual properties in Boxborough may be eligible for even more additional funding via the salt remediation program that is through Mass DOT, and Lorraine Poland would be the person to contact for that if you're not already in the salt remediation program, and I will list her contact information on the last slide if you're interested in applying to be in that. Lastly, we started construction in December 2024 after contracts were awarded in November, and we started for the Boxborough water main extension in December, and we started work for the Trumbull Well development and the raw water transmission main construction early in January. And I'll fill you in now on both of the progress on those projects. So as I mentioned, this main project kind of consists of two different parts that complement each other. The first being the Trumbull Well and raw water transmission main, and the other one being the water main that will be extended from Littleton's existing distribution system on Wickham Avenue near Nancy's Way into Boxborough. And the route that this water main will be installed in is down Wickham Ave towards the Harvard town line on Littleton County Road, and then it will go down Beaverbrook Road to Swanson Road, across Route 11, Mass Ave, and finally end at Codman Hill Road. And I think that total length is about 4.5 miles of water main. The presence of this water main will allow for any abutting parcel in Boxborough to connect to Littleton's water system, and it will allow for the 11 public water systems that Les mentioned have been experiencing degraded water quality through sodium chloride and PFAS contamination. They'll now be able to access clean, treated drinking water through Littleton's distribution system. This is a great option for these public water systems that have contaminated sources in comparison to installing and operating their own treatment systems. Construction of this water line began in December of 2024 by our contractors CJP and Sons. They made a significant amount of progress from Nancy's Way on Wickham Avenue, and they finished about 200 feet from the Littleton Harvard town line, with construction expected to start up again in April. So the other piece of this project is the Trumbull well and raw water main installation. As Les mentioned, you might be more familiar with the well being referred to as the Taylor Street well. It's exactly the same source, but the LELWD Board of Commissioners have dedicated this well to Mr. Bruce Trumbull, who was a longtime member of their board. So going forward, you'll hear it referred to as the Trumbull well. So this well was permitted for a withdrawal of 265,000 gallons per day, and there may be an opportunity to double this withdrawal in the future, depending on impacts of pumping to local ecology in that area of the well. C9 Corp won this project contract, and they began installing water mains for the raw water transmission main and replacing finished water main on Wickham Avenue on January 6th. They're planning to deploy another crew as soon as possible once pre-construction conditions are satisfied at the well site to start preparing the site for installation of the well, building, and an access road. The transmission main will run from the well building on Taylor Street, it will run parallel, it will be directionally drilled under Route 2 and Beaverbrook, and then run parallel to Route 2 to the well site at 153 Taylor Street. The horizontal directional drilling is expected to occur in February or March, and the reason why this was used as a process was so it didn't impact Beaverbrook water body or traffic on Route 2. So just a kind of brief overview of the project schedule in its entirety. The inception of this project really began in 2018 when these public water systems were identified as having contamination in their water supply. We really started doing serious design engineering in June of 2022. A lot of the permitting occurred over about a year and a half, from June 2023 to June 2024, pretty much right up to when we went out to bid and awarded contracts in November of this past year, 2024, and the project is anticipated, barring any significant setbacks, to be completed in November of 2026. So one of the most frequent questions we receive about this project is what will it cost property owners? So I'm going to go through some of these expected costs for the project and explain what these are actually attributed to. So the overall estimated project cost for future Boxborough customers is currently around $12.4 million. And Mass DOT has committed $6.5 million as compensation for water quality degradation. So this is a huge reduction in the overall project cost. So looking at that DOT contribution, now it's only about $6 million that needs to be paid for by the Boxborough customers. This outstanding balance will be paid through the zero interest SRF loan that was secured, and then the cost will be recovered using betterment fees assessed to each Boxborough property along the water main route. So a little bit more information about the costs. as I mentioned, the betterment fees will be collected from all Boxborough property owners along the water main route to cover these project costs for construction, design, police details, contingencies, all of those things get wrapped into those contracts. The betterment fee is assessed whether the property chooses to connect or not, because the property value will increase with the availability of a municipal water connection. Any properties along the water main route that are not currently part of a public water system are not required to connect, but they will be able to if they choose to. If a property currently has no building structures present, it will not be assessed a betterment fee. Existing Littleton customers will cover the Littleton portion of the project through the regular water rates that are currently in place, so they will not be assessed any additional betterment fee. At this point, betterment fees have not been finalized because the project costs could potentially change depending on a handful of different factors, and we are all still exploring those additional funding mechanisms, so hopefully we can reduce these fees. There will be an additional connection fee if a property chooses to connect to the Littleton water system, which I'll break down in the following slide. For condo complexes that are connecting, we're anticipating that the HOAs will pay this connection fee, and once the individual buildings are hooked up, they'll receive, the individual units will receive monthly water bills. And then the costs for the connection fees will be passed on to the individual unit owners by adjusting their monthly condo fees. It's important to note, which I'll explain a little bit further towards the end of this presentation, that although these costs were not paid prior to connecting to LWD's water systems, such as betterments and service connection fees, the hope is that they offset the existing costs for maintaining the wells and the treatment systems that are currently on site at these public water systems. And then all other connected buildings that aren't part of a public water system or a condo association will pay a standard connection fee, betterment fees, and receive their monthly water bills directly from LELWD, just as they currently are for their electric bills. So this chart is showing our standard connection fees for services of different sizes. Typically, the size of the pipe connecting a building to the water system is based on the volume of water needed for any expected activities in the facility. These rates apply to all customers and are the same for everyone looking to connect, whether it's in Littleton or Boxborough. And only the properties that actually connect to our system will have to pay the connection fee. So this connection fee kind of embodies a few different parts of our water system. It's a contribution of capital towards maintaining our existing facilities, such as treatment plants, storage tanks, and the water mains that are already in the ground, and helps us to adequately maintain and update this infrastructure. These charts show LELWD's current water rates. This is the cost to use water, and it is billed on a monthly basis. So just like you all receive an electric bill now every month from LELWD, if you choose to connect, you will also receive a water bill every month from LELWD, and it will be combined on one bill. So you won't even notice an extra piece of paper coming through the mail. It will all be combined with electric and water. And these rates kind of show you, depending on the size of the meter, you pay a monthly base charge, and then to promote water efficiency and water conservation, we have a tiered rate structure. So the less water you use, the less money you'll pay per 1,000 gallons. I'll touch on this kind of briefly, but if any of the buildings are determined that they need a fire sprinkler system, which will be determined by the Boxborough building inspector, then we'll run a separate service for a fire sprinkler system, and based on the size of that sprinkler service, you'll pay an annual fee for maintaining that. So just to kind of touch on some of the costs that will hopefully be offset by connecting to Littleton's water system, these are the things that we are currently, maintaining and paying for because we are a public water system, and these are things that the 11 public water systems are currently paying for. Obviously you have to have someone to run the treatment plant and operate the wells, so that costs money to have a contract operator doing that, filing compliance reporting, taking samples, and getting those processed at a lab. Obviously, there are costs associated with any chemicals that might be added, as well as pumping equipment, chemical feed equipment, pipes in the ground that need to be fixed, spare parts, different equipment and materials, general upgrades and capital improvement projects, and utilities associated with these treatment works that are currently in place. So these are all kind of the things that we embody in our rates and our service connection fees that the PWSs will no longer be directly responsible for, but that's part of what you're paying for as a Littleton Water customer. So getting towards the end of my presentation here, looking at some of the next steps for everyone involved with this project. If you have any specific questions for your property that are more appropriate for the homeowners association or your public water system, you should know who to address those to. But if you have questions directly related to this project or the presentation, you can email us at info@lelwd.com. At this time, all PWSs are expected to connect to the water main that we're currently installing. That's going towards Boxborough to avoid further violations of water quality standards. But up until that time, it's expected that you continue to operate your system in accordance with all Mass DEP requirements. And finally, each PWS and future connector should be working to determine their required service size for their buildings, as well as if they need any distribution network updates that our water main will tie into, and fire protection needs. As part of our water use rules and regulations, we do require an engineer evaluation is done for any service connection that's greater than 1 inch. And as we've kind of started this process with some of these public water systems, LELWD staff is happy to coordinate and answer any questions you may have, and discuss, future connections, future billing questions, anything related to connecting to our system. We definitely want to help you out with that process. And lastly, we've been trying to update the LELWD website as well as the Town of Boxborough website very frequently to keep people in the loop on what's going on with this project. And we also have project alerts. So when we update our webpage, you'll receive an email notification telling you that there's new information. So if you want to sign up for those updates, you can access that at the lelw.com/Boxborough Water Main link. And then again, the Town of Boxborough is posting updates. If there's anything to share with the public, you can find those on their town website page. And my final slide that I'll leave up here, just in case you want to note down any of our contact information. I'm the primary contact for the Littleton Water Department if you have any questions related to the project. And then we also have from Mass DEP, Bob Bostwick, Mass DOT. Specifically, if you have questions related to the salt remediation program, you can contact Lorraine Poland. And then Les, who introduced all of us earlier in the presentation, is representing the Boxborough Water Resources Committee. So if you want to contact any of us, feel free to shoot us an email with any questions. So that's all I have for my presentation, but we do have a handful of questions that we received prior to the presentation that Dave and I can kind of run through now.
Yeah, thanks, Les and Matt. That was a great presentation. And just a reminder for everyone as an attendee in here, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen for that. Matt and I also got a number of emailed questions, so we'll be going through those. We've got a few live questions here right now. So Matt, I'll start right off the top. I'm going to ask you to pull back up the presentation. Our first question here, on the proposed finished water main extension slide, I noticed that 70 Conman Hill is the only parcel highlighted in green hash marks. What does this mean? I think, Matt, this also coincides with one of the emailed questions we got about that same property.
Okay. Yeah, so I believe it's probably this one here with the green hashes.
Yep.
And this legend is kind of small, but that just represents that The current PFAS concentrations are not exceeding the state drinking water standards, but they are exceeding for chloride.
Okay, and then just the follow-up on that. So 60 and 70 Codman Hill Road are part of the connecting public water systems, right?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. All right, let's go to some more questions here. Could you please tell us how this affects those of us who live at Paddock Estates? We just moved here in October. We heard Paddock has its own water tanks, and we heard we should not drink the water here. Is this true?
Yeah, so connecting Paddock Estates is not part of the scope of this project. And I would recommend checking with the owner of the property because we don't have any information on Paddock Estates water quality.
Okay. Next question here. And any other panelists, please feel free to speak up on any of these questions if you have anything else to add. Will there be intermediate connections as the line is built, or will connections wait until the line is complete?
Yeah, so we'll kind of have to evaluate as construction progresses and coordinate with the properties as they kind of prepare to connect. But, you know, there are a lot of different factors and moving pieces, so I think it will probably go on a case-by-case basis. But we definitely want to start those conversations now so that once we are kind of approaching that part, you know, we're all communicating and we know exactly how we're going to connect them. So we'll just kind of have to work together with those individual systems to plan once the time comes.
Okay, good answer. Thanks, Matt. Next question. Have the costs been determined for the different properties? Does that include properties that are not public water supply locations as well? I believe you covered that in the presentation, but if you want to touch on that again.
Yep. So the betterments do include non-public water systems, and at this time we don't have final betterment costs. Like I said, you know, the project costs can change, but we all of us who are involved with this project are also working to get these costs down as much as we can. So we're still looking at some other funding options to try to reduce the project cost burden on Boxborough residents.
Okay, and then a quick follow-up on that. When can each property assume that they'll know what they're going to be paying for the betterment?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the project will be ending by November 2026. We want to get this information to people as soon as possible. Obviously, you know, it's a financial commitment and it's going to have an impact. So we're working diligently to make sure, you know, everything is accounted for. But at this time, I don't know if we have a solid timeline where we'll get it to you as soon as we can. But obviously, you know, the project will be ending November 26th. So we want to start getting those things in place well before that.
Great. Thank you, Matt.
David, if I can jump in for a second, with regards to the question about Paddock Estates, if you want to email me your question directly, it's kind of beyond the scope of this presentation. I'll be happy to follow up with you directly.
Okay. Thanks, Bob. All right, Matt, what are the plans for repaving the roads that have been disturbed? The temporary patchings are not good, coming from someone that travels up Wickham Ave multiple times per day.
Yep. I'd have to check the paving plan, but all those temporary patches need to sit for at least 90 days, just to make sure if they are final paved, there's going to be no settling. So they want to make sure if the ground settles at all, it happens before they put their final patch in. But which I should have mentioned before, any of the updates for project schedules for this year, we can post those on our website and share that with people. So at least 90 days. We like to let things sit a little bit longer through a winter season just to make sure the ground is stable when they do their final patch. But I think the priority is going to be putting the main in the ground, and then they'll go back to pave once they're kind of getting towards the end of the project.
Okay, thanks, Matt. We have a few questions here on private wells. I'll try and group these together as best as possible. So, what measures are currently part of the project to ensure that the wells nearby Littleton homes will not be negatively impacted by having this much water removed from the same aquifer?
Yeah, for that question, I would just say, we underwent 2 extensive pumping tests to kind of prove out that there were any negative impacts on the aquifer, and we also have determination from the Water Management Act group through our permit that states that any additional withdrawal from the Merrimack River Basin is within the safe yield, so we don't anticipate any negative impacts to private wells.
Okay, and then follow up on that. If homeowners along the water main route that have private wells need to hook up to LELWD's system in the future, will they be able to?
Yeah, that again would have to be a case by case basis. Just there's a lot of different factors we'd have to consider. So, but I would say if you're paying a betterment, you'll have the opportunity to connect for sure.
Okay. Next question here. When do you expect connections to be made, barring any unforeseen delays or circumstances?
I'd have to talk with our contractor. They are really just focused on getting the water main in and then going back to run service connections. At least from what we typically do is we run the service connection from the water main in the street to the property line. So some of those might happen in 2025 or 2026, depending on kind of project progress. But we're happy to coordinate that with all these systems that will be connecting, because we want to make sure we put the service connection where it will be easily accessible and where the property owner wants it to be.
Okay. So this person asks, is the Taylor well, so the Trumbull well, the Taylor well, the sole source of the water that will be piped to Boxborough? And will that water have been treated for PFAS and sodium removal? So Matt, can you just talk about the treatment process a little bit?
Yep, definitely. And that's a good question, because that was a common misunderstanding in the beginning of the project. So the Trumbull well isn't getting directly sent into Boxborough. We have a completely combined distribution system. So we have 9 groundwater wells currently, and they all go into one system, and that system will be extended into Boxborough. So you can't really attribute any specific source as going directly to Boxborough or to any customer, really, because it's all blending. And as far as our treatment system goes, we're all of our sources are treated for iron and manganese. We do have some sodium and chloride, but nothing that exceeds the state standards. And we also treat for PFAS at our Wickham Ave treatment plant, where we have basically zero non-detect PFAS, and we have very low levels at our Beaverbrook treatment plant, well below the state standard. And I could also note that because Boxborough customers haven't seen any of our water quality data, we do have that on our website, and we can send you directly our annual water quality report, so you have that information.
Okay, thank you. Are there plans to extend the water main along Mass Ave on the west side of Mass Ave? And if Boxborough needs more water in the future, will this be possible?
Like I said, that's not part of this project scope. And the IMA is currently for only 65,000 gallons per day, which is really what we're attributing to the systems we're expecting to connect. So at this time, it's not in the plan.
Okay, thank you. Will Moore Lane in Littleton be connected to the main on Whitcomb?
We're leaving a piece of water main if they want to connect in the future, but again, that's not part of this project scope. But there is water main available if they're interested, so we can definitely have a conversation.
Okay. And that is the last question that I have in the queue right now. So I don't know if any of the panelists want to add anything else while we wait for more questions.
Just as a clarification to what Matt said during the presentation, Mass DEP, there was a statement about we're expecting the water systems to connect to the water line. Connecting to the water line is the choice of the public water systems. We're not requiring it as part of DEP regulations. However, please be aware that if the water systems do not connect and you continue to be a public water system, you will be expected to meet drinking water standards and, if necessary, put on the necessary treatment, permitted treatment going forward.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
Yep.
Another question here, will there be room for future expansion? Matt, I'll let you touch on that again, but I just want to say that, you know, being the Littleton Water Department, we're focused on our Littleton customer base first and making sure that all of their needs are met before, you know, even considering a future expansion. Matt, I'll let you follow up on that, but I just want to make that clear.
Yeah, I would echo that and just say, you know, we have to be careful with what we're able to withdraw the ground and what we can supply to customers, because, you know, water isn't an unlimited resource either. So we have to make sure we're balancing that and, you know, protecting what we're able to supply for essential functions, commercial functions, all of that, as well as fire protection at all times. So.
Okay. Where can we get the drawings or the path of the water main?
I'd be happy to share the plans if you want to reach out to me directly.
Matt, I think on our website as well, there's at least a bird's eye view available.
Yeah, I believe so. If not, we can definitely post like a full kind of project scope.
Here's another question. Is the former Cisco property on Beaverbrook Road going to be supplied by this project?
Yes. I think it's either 4 or 5 of those buildings will be connecting.
Yeah. Here's a good question about the Trumbull well. How do you monitor the Trumbull well to ensure you will not be impacting local homeowner water wells?
Yeah, I would just say, you know, we kind of rely on that pumping test determination, but also a majority of private wells are drilled, you know, hundreds or thousands of feet into the ground, while our well is only about 50 or 60 feet deep. So if we pump that well dry, then the private wells should be completely fine, but we definitely don't want to do that.
Okay. Next question. Will fire sprinkler service be streamed or pumped to a water storage tank?
No, so that might be how it's currently set up as far as like providing fire protection without the connection to our system, but we'll be able to supply water main that can connect to fire hydrants. So we're not anticipating that.
Okay. Next question. Where can these folks access the slides from tonight, Matt?
We could post them on that project page. So if you want to use the the same link I put on this, I think it was the second to last slide. If you go to LELWD water projects, Boxborough water main extension, we can post them there.
Yeah, Matt, if I could jump in, for those folks who would like to see the slides and or other slides that came in previous presentations, all of that is now up on the Littleton Water Department's page on this project. It's quite extensive and it's worth reading if you want to familiarize yourself with some of the details.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you, Les. We also have an alert notification set up. So whenever we push new information out onto that page, we'll automatically email you that new information is there for you to go and consume.
I'm using that and it's great.
So that's all the questions that we have right now. Actually, here's one more that just came in. With all the planned growth in Littleton, does Littleton have enough water for Littleton without restrictions?
Yeah, as long as, we don't enter into a drought, which is usually declared by the state, and then we have conditions in our Water Management Act permit that require us to enforce those outdoor water use restrictions, but the hope is that we don't experience that.
Okay, thank you, Matt.
We're weather dependent.
Okay. Well, I appreciate everyone joining tonight. Looks like that's all the questions that we have. Like Matt said, please feel free to reach out to anyone that was on that slide with further questions, and please stay informed on our website and look for future updates. And we're happy to be moving forward with this project. Anyone else want to say any closing statements?
Well, I'll just say thanks to Matt and his team for all the work they have continued to do right along here for multiple years. And it's really looking good and feeling good. I mean, you can drive down that way on Nancy's Way and see pipes and hydrants sticking up. So real stuff is happening.
Yep, definitely.
This is not just slideware.
Great. Well, thank you for everyone for joining tonight and taking your time to become informed. Thank you to Mass DEP, Mass DOT, Les, Matt, great job. Kirby, thank you very much. LCTV and everyone else involved. Tara and Kevin, all of Weston and Sampson, thank you very much. And we look forward to continuing the progress on this project.
And yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you all.
Thank you.